Welcome to everyone for our webinar today with Sky Capuccio, who's the CEO of COSBOA, which is the Council of Small Business Organisations for Australia, and Abia is a member of that group. We know that we have an enormous number of small businesses in our membership base, so it's really important to link in with other industry partners that aren't necessarily in the business events industry, that help us in doing our jobs. And we do also have a small business forum of about 12 members who use that as a forum once again to talk about their business issues and challenges and share any wins or ideas amongst themselves as small businesses, because we know there's a lot of pressure on small businesses, and in particular at the moment with the Iran war. We know it's just escalates and is, exponential for small businesses who can't carry those costs and can't adapt the budgets as some of the larger companies can. So before I start off, just giving a quick update on things to do with Abia and getting on with Sky's slides, wanted to do a quick acknowledgement of country. So acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on where we're all meeting or watching this today. I know Tamara and I are in Woodjuk country, so we want to pay our respects to elders past and present. A few quick things before we go into the webinar. We've got a lot happening over the next few months. So we've got our roundtables for all of our members around Australia, which commence tomorrow in Perth, and then go through over the next month pretty much. We've also got mixed in with that, and at other times over the next 2 months, we have lots of social connects. Good time to get out and forget about all the yucky stuff that's going on and have some drinks and mix with our peers in the industry. And all of these can be found online. And for the exhibition part of the industry, and that's those not just in the straight trade show side, but in who do exhibitions as part of being a PCO or an in-house planner or corporate in-house events. We have a global exhibition day breakfast that we're holding in Sydney at ICC with a great panel and a speaking slot with the CEO of the Australasian Railways Association, who is very happy with the return she gets on exhibitions. So a lot happening, as I said, over the next few months. So I encourage you to jump onto our calendar and register for all of those things. And we also have our Leading Well for Emerging Leaders course that is starting in August. We have another one running in December. And also for the emerging leaders, there's a raft of coffee catch-ups that are being run around Australia in the coming weeks. Once again, I think Perth's the first off the ranks on Friday morning, which I'll be at. And it's a great community that's growing and growing for our emerging leaders who are really the future of our industry. So we encourage anyone to come along to that, buy coffee and have a yarn. So I'll hand over to you now, Sky, and thank you so much for your time. I know it is hell busy for you at the moment with your members. Sky sits in Canberra, which is great, and so therefore is close to the government, and is only been in the job maybe 3 to 4 months.
Only 2 months, in fact,
right?
But it feels a bit longer.
There you go. Well, it's still new, and I'll let you just give a little bit of your background as well. But I'll hand over to you, and we'll go through the slides, and then any questions after that from you, Tamara, and any others that we might just throw at you, Sky, as well.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Melissa. I very much appreciate the invitation to be here and to have these conversations with you. So as Melissa said, I'm the CEO of COSBOA, who is the Council of Small Business Organisations Australia. As Melissa also said, I'm very new to the role. I've been in the space 2 months, but I have been working in the association space. And the association space linked to small businesses for much of my career. Most recently, I was the CEO of the Peak Body for Optometrists. My intention today is to give you an overview of who COSBOA is and what we do, and to as part of that, take a reasonably significant detour to have a bit of a chat about the current state of play for small business, including some of the particular challenges that we are hearing in the fuel space. And I would flag that from the beginning, I am very keen to hear from your sector at any point in the conversation about the impact of the current fuel crisis and what is now becoming a crisis in crude oil derived products as well. But to talk quickly about I guess if we start with what COSBOA does. So COSBOA essentially exists. We were started in the late 1970s to ensure that small business has a distinct and independent voice. So our role is to make sure that small business is recognised in the corridors of power as mattering, and making sure that the small business voice shapes all of the different spaces that can impact on the environment in which small business operates. So we do this through 4 key areas, which are represented on the screen there. The first 2 are very interrelated. So a lot of our focus is on representing small business interests to government, and trying to work with government to set in place policy conditions that are positive and productive for small business. So we advocate to do that. We advocate in a range of different ways, including in partnerships with our members. Often we utilise the media and often their backroom discussions in political forums as well. One of the other things that we're really committed to doing is supporting the conversation and the connections. So supporting our members, and I will talk you through who our members are in a moment, but supporting our members to engage and network with people who can make those decisions. So policymakers, decision makers, regulators, but also supporting the broader small business advocacy community to be having the conversations and to be fleshing out the critical issues. So really providing forums for those critical policy discussions to be taking place. We also play a role in awareness and education, and that goes 2 ways. So awareness and education for government, for federal decision makers in particular, around who small business is, the experience of small business, but also we have a number of programs that we run on behalf of the federal government that are about providing awareness and education to small business about particular things or particular changes, usually regulatory changes that the government might have introduced. And I will get to those later on, because there's a few useful resources that might be of relevance to small businesses watching this or joining us today. Which brings us, if we'd like to flick a slide ahead to who COSBOA is. So COSBOA is made up of peak bodies like ABEA from a whole range of industries. So we don't have direct small business organisations as our members, but we have about 45 to 55 at any point in time peak bodies who represent large volumes of small businesses. So this is everyone from swim schools to accountants, to hairdressers, to the Pharmacy Guild, to the Master Business Association, Builders Association. So quite a breadth of industries and representation there. We also work quite closely with associates, and I flag this in order to be very transparent, but to also say we really do value some of the relationships we have with partners who are also very interested in supporting and making sure that the small business environment fosters or is thriving, and some of those partners are listed there as well. Their sponsorship and their partnership is really critical to us doing what we do, particularly in helping us provide the spaces for advocates and for policymakers to be getting together and having those discussions about what the future for small business should look like. So a critical part of what we do, and probably the key function that COSBOA has, is in the policy and advocacy space, which for those who don't work particularly in this space essentially means giving advice around what policy conditions might look like, so things like legislative changes, and then advocating for those to be introduced. Our work is often reactive, so we do a lot of work responding to government inquiries, parliamentary inquiries from regulators like the ATO, ASIC, ACCC. And so we would sometimes do 4 to 5 submissions into those sorts of inquiries each week. And that's about bringing the small business perspective and often a bit of a reality check into some of those conversations. So it might be highlighting, actually, if you go down that route, it's going to be really impractical for a small business who only has 2 or 3 staff to implement, or you will be increasing the red tape burden on small businesses who already have a heavy regulatory burden. We also aim to have a proactive voice as well. Predominantly, we would outline our proactive policy each year, the priorities through a submission prior to the federal budget to the government, but we advocate all year round for those particularly proactive positions to be put in place. And if we keep on moving, this is the bit where I would like to take the, I guess, the detour and chat a little bit further about the conditions we're seeing now for small businesses across the country and some of the critical policy issues that we are really driving. So obviously, I do want to talk about the fuel crisis, but even before we get to even before the fuel crisis hit, small businesses in a broad sense across the country were really experiencing tight conditions. And that's across industries, particularly hospitality and particularly construction, but also more broadly across most industries, in fact, in small business. We know that margins have, particularly since the kind of post-COVID era, so since 2023 or so, margins have become much tighter. Lots of this is to do with increasing costs of doing business. Some of those are industry specific. Some of those are also common across industries, and some of those would probably be hitting your industries particularly hard. So they're things like insurance cost increases, energy cost increases, and wages cost increases. And I share that to flag that we don't have the conditions right to be fostering small business growth and productivity even prior to entering the current fuel crisis that we are currently in. Obviously, the conflict in the Middle East has dramatically enhanced pressures on small business. We were originally seeing this in particular acute ways, and I'm conscious that you will all be aware of this, in particularly acute ways in industries that were very reliant on transport and in industries that were particularly regional. But it's very fair to say that that quickly spread across the whole supply chain, and now is also impacting in businesses that perhaps we wouldn't even traditionally think of as being in some of those supply chains, where they're starting to report that they are experiencing a downturn in consumer confidence. Depending on the sector and the space, we know that the impact at this point in time is really quite, it depends where you are, but can be really very, very harsh. Some survey work that we have been doing suggests, particularly for those in the regions, that up to 20% of small businesses in those areas are reporting they're already at that critical point as a result of the extra pressure put on by the cash flow changes linked to the fuel crisis. So our focus at the moment is on having conversations with government about 2 things. One is about what we need to do to support small business to respond to the fuel crisis. I think it's really encouraging that government has been willing to have these conversations and to have those conversations openly. We have obviously seen the government make some moves that are supportive in this space, including the fuel levy changes, road levy charges, also some ATO small business relief package that was announced a couple of weeks ago as well. At the same time, though, we've also seen other areas of government or other regulators make announcements that will put more pressure on cash flow for small business. So that includes the RBA's recent announcement that they will ban surcharging on the use of credit and debit cards effective from October, and some recent changes coming out of the Fair Work Commission around junior wage rates. So we are continuing to try and have conversations with government about what may need to happen into the future if the fuel crisis continues or if it escalates at any point in time. Our assumption is that if the government is to make moves at any point in time in that area, they would be looking at targeted responses and targeted support packages rather than broad-based ones. So that is the conversation we are looking to engage in. But I think all of this actually underlines the fact that we need to get the critical foundations, not just the crisis response, but the critical foundations underlying small business in Australia in the right space. Particularly, we need to be looking at how we can adjust policy to make sure that we are fostering small business growth and productivity. The particular spaces that we focus on are reducing the regulatory burden, so essentially the red tape burden that small business experiences. So our data suggests that depending on the industry, small business owners are often doing 6 to 10 hours of work each and every week just on managing their compliance burden, which is obviously not a productive way to be operating. Our call, alongside many of the other business peaks, is for the government, in fact, for all levels of government, to commit to a 25% reduction in the red tape burden being experienced by all levels of business. And by 25% reduction, we don't mean a 25% reduction in the number of regulations, but a 25% reduction in actually the financial burden, which we can measure that is imposing on the whole community of businesses. We're also very keen to see tax settings adapted, particularly changes to the tax settings that foster greater investment and growth from small business. So particularly we'd be keen to see a reduction in the small business tax rate from 25% to 20%, and an increase in the instant asset write-off. So the instant asset write-off at the moment and until the end of this financial year enables small businesses to essentially write off an investment up to the threshold of $20,000, which might allow a small business to write off an investment in a coffee machine or a dishwasher or a trailer, but is really not sufficient to enable investment in some of the things that are really critical to driving small business productivity, and there would be ones particular to your industry, but in manufacturing equipment or bringing on another vehicle so you can bring on another staff member. So our argument is that if you really want to drive productivity in small business, you need to be increasing that to a threshold of 150,000. In the productivity space, and moving a little bit away from the topics, I guess, of regulation and tax, we also think in small business there is somewhat of an untapped opportunity to support small businesses to utilize AI or to optimize their use of AI to drive efficiency more. So we're seeing that the uptake in small business of AI usage of any extent is about 40%. Whereas in larger businesses, it's about 85%. And we also know that larger businesses are optimizing their use of AI more effectively than small businesses are able to. So we've been calling on government to give some support, I guess, introductory support to small businesses about how to take a step into that space of utilizing AI in a way that enhances the efficiency of your business. And the last point I would flag there is obviously we have ongoing conversations with the government about the critical, essential nature of ensuring that we have a skilled workforce available to our small businesses when they are trying to grow. It's very hard to grow a business if you can't bring on staff members who know how to work in your space. So that's an ongoing conversation as well. So that's an overview of, I think, the particularly proactive policy space that we are playing in at the moment. If I then come back off our detour of talking particularly around policy and policy issues, I did just want to quickly flag some of the other spaces that functions that COSBOA performs. As I said at the very beginning, one of our critical focus points is ensuring that we are fostering engagement and discussion between our members and also between our members and decision makers, which means that members like ABIA are regularly invited to roundtables, lunches, etc., where there is a conversation, often with conversation directly with decision makers, about critical policy areas impacting on small business, and that's depicted in this slide here. And if we skip forward, the other big thing that particularly big event that COSBOA hosts each year is the National Small Business Summit. So it's about 250 to 300 people, but predominantly small business advocates, people like Melissa, who come and join in conversations with regulators, small business ombudsmen, tax commissioners, ministers, shadow ministers, etc., about the critical things impacting small business at the moment and shaping the small business environment into the future. And we can probably click forward. And we can probably move past that one. As I said at the beginning, COSBOA is also very pleased to run a number of programs. We have four major programs at the moment, but there's only two that I will flag today on behalf of the Commonwealth. One of those is called Small Business Peak, and you can see the website there. And for anyone running a small business, I definitely recommend that you log on and check it out. So Small Business Peak is a national initiative that's intended to help small business understand and implement key areas of government workplace relations, particularly to understand workplace relation changes that have been introduced since 2022. So there have been quite a raft, I think about 38 separate workplace relation changes brought in that impact on small business since that time. Small Business Peak provides a very easy and accessible way to be across those, to understand which ones of those are relevant to your particular business and how you can implement them. If we flick forward, the other program that I particularly wanted to highlight, again, it's a Commonwealth funded program that COSBOA runs, is called Cyber Wardens. It's responding to the fact that small businesses consistently tell us that cybersecurity is in their top three risks. So the top three things that they see as a risk to their business is cybersecurity, but also many don't know how to improve the security of their own business. So we, in partnership with the government, have introduced a Cyber Wardens program. The thinking behind it is that you have a fire warden in each business or each building, that you also have a cyber warden, and you empower somebody within your business to have the basic skills to know what you need to be implementing in that space. Cyber Wardens is very much about small business. So what it's offering is super practical, all online, very approachable. You do not need an IT degree to engage with it. The introductory course, which is very valuable, is only 10 minutes and introduces you to sort of the top 90% of critical cybersecurity things you need to be putting in place in your business. So the QR code there links directly to the Cyber Wardens options and resources that we have available. And there is a range of different resources, but as I said before, particularly the short online courses are really useful for small business in terms of applying things right now that can enhance your cybersecurity. And we do have, I do have a slide on our two other programs, but we might push past those in the interest of time. I'm conscious that I've been talking for quite a while. I would like to particularly say that we're very appreciative of ABA as being one of our engaged members. It is definitely COSBOA's members that make them a strong voice and that give us a impactful voice to government. So very grateful for that, for the membership, and also very grateful for the opportunity to come and chat. And on top of that, very happy to take questions.
No, thank you, Tamara. That's great. And we ourselves, being a small business, have done the Cyber Wardens course. And so I do encourage everyone to get on and do it. It's surprising how high the percentage is of its staff normally just doing some sort of error or something that they weren't really aware of that creates a lot of breaches. So it's important. It's really important to have. As it gets more and more aggressive, I think the cybersecurity attacks and so on. The other thing, which is the peak program you mentioned, I think we'll be down the track doing a separate webinar around that, because you're exactly right, Sky. Lots of people don't know what they don't know, and they haven't got time to be trawling through what the latest industrial relations changes are. But then all of a sudden they're on, a business's doorstep and they've got to do a whole lot of stuff to comply. So they're two really important programs. So while anyone's having a think about questions, I wanted to ask you just one question around the current crisis. What things do you think that we learnt from COVID that we should replicate if we do get into a deeper terrible situation? What were some of the things that worked well for small businesses during COVID that would be good to reintroduce? And I know you said the government are looking at things that are a bit more specific and audience specific as well. But yeah, do you know of anything that you'd be saying, hey, we need to do this again, that worked?
Yes, so I think there was a lot of things during COVID that were really effective in keeping small businesses afloat. I think COVID was a slightly different
Mm,
circumstance than the one that we are currently in. But I think we did learn from COVID if you act early, that's a great way to have significant impact.
mm,
I think one of the differences that we will probably see in the response here is that I think one of the lessons the government thinks that they have learned from COVID is to take more targeted responses. And I think that's what we will see moving forward in this space is that if it becomes necessary, I don't have a crystal ball, but this is my expectation that we will see responses around support targeted at particular industries or particular areas. One of
yeah.
the other things I think that was useful in terms of supporting business cash flow during COVID was an adjusted approach from the ATO. We've seen the ATO announce this time that they will take a slightly different approach than they took during COVID, but it is, in my opinion, a very proportionate response and it is really practical. And it's about encouraging small business to essentially be able to engage with the ATO who is able to adjust a little bit so that small business can continue to pay their debts, but recognizing that they still need to be able to keep cash flow moving.
Mm, Okay, no, good point. Do we have any questions from those online? Or are you just soaking up all the knowledge?
Not at this stage, Melissa.
Okay. I think I've got one other question here that would be good to cover. Um, when you're talking about policy changes or doing advocacy work with the government, how much, I mean, you obviously have these forums that you talk about where you collect information from people. How much of a sort of momentum is required for COSBOA to say, okay, we need to now go and really advocate for that? Is it that you might only have a couple of members that are suffering from a particular challenge, or is it a case of we need all of our members to be, quite vocal about a particular topic before you'll take it to government to bring it up to them for discussion?
We put a lot of value in our members' voices
Mm,
and really do engage closely with our members. So it's somewhat dependent, I think, on exactly what the issue
mhm,
is. But listen very closely even to individual members' voices and look at opportunities to amplify those, even if we are not amplifying those in a sense of actually putting their key priority forward directly to a minister on their behalf. We might be amplifying it in other submissions that we are putting in other areas that are
mm,
relevant as well. So I don't think it's a case of saying we need all of our members to be in agreement on a particular issue.
mm.
And there are definitely cases where we would work with particular parts of our membership to help them advocate on issues that are particularly
Yeah.
relevant.
And it's probably a good thing for our members to know as well that I inform you of things that we're putting to
Yes.
government so that our last two submissions we did, so that if there's any conversation that comes up, it means that everyone's informed. And we do the same with, the Airports Association and Accommodation Australia, etc., just so that there is consistent messaging and people are aware of what we're facing or, things that we may have submitted or asked for. So we thank you for that support as well. It's definitely helpful, particularly when you're based in Canberra. So, well, we won't hold you any longer. If we get any questions come through when people are watching this, I'll send those through to you. For those online, you can just do a quick couple of minutes survey back to us on the content by the scanning the code on the screen at the moment. But otherwise, Sky, thank you very much, and let's hope that news is good news for us in the coming weeks.
Thanks very much, Melissa. Lovely
Take
to have
care.
joined you.
See you then. Bye bye.